Today we're going to talk about jogging the robot, also known as moving the robot manually, the teach method. So when we jog the robot, there's 5 different jog modes that we could use. One of them is joint. Moving the robot one joint at a time. Okay? The other one is jog frame, tool, user, and world. We have joint here, and the rest of these are Cartesian, where they use an XYZ coordinate system. Okay? So joint mode is the most efficient way to move the robot. Why do I say it's the most efficient way? Because when you move the robot in joint, all you're doing is turning the motor on for the axis and commanding it to move in either a positive or negative direction. So you're giving it a plus or negative voltage, and the robot will move that axis. Okay? So let me draw a robot here. Okay. So down at the waist of the robot, this is axis 1 for joint 1. J2, this is the shoulder. J3, elbow. J4, this is the forearm. J5, the wrist, and J6 here at the end is the hand. So you can see how it imitates the arm of a human. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. You got your forearm, you got the hand. And everything turns at the waist. Okay, those are our 6 axes. It's the 6-axis robot here. So, moving in joint is very easy because there's no math involved. When you move it in one of these frames here, it's calculating, using math to move the robot. Okay? So, let's talk about world. We're going to move the robot in world. So, world is part of one of the Cartesian systems in the robot. If you remember Cartesian from geometry, you remember something like this. We used to have to do these on graph paper. Remember, you go over a couple, you go up a couple, and then there's a point in space, and there's an XY value for that point, right? This point here with a cross, that was called back in the day origin point. I'm talking back in geometry when we were in high school. That was your origin point here. Then you had your X and your Y direction. So robots move in 3D space, so they have an X, Y, and a Z direction. Okay? They also have an orientation, which we'll talk about later. But for now, let's talk about the X, Y, Z. So to start with, we have an origin point. We're talking about world. So world for the robot, the origin point is in the center. Center of the base, even with J2 motor, so right here. Here's our origin point. And if you think about it, this is a point on the robot that does not move in physical space. Okay? If you put a mark anywhere out here on this robot, anywhere on it, it's going to move that point in space somewhere, except for one spot, which is right in the center here, down the middle, and here. So no matter which way you move it, this way, move it this way, that point is fixed in space. That's our origin point for world. These come with the robots by default. Cannot change this point. Okay? You can program in world, and anything you program, any points you program, are going to be in relation to this origin point. It's going to be an offset from it. Now let's talk about the direction. We got the right hand rule, okay? We have this finger here, which is our index finger, X. This is X positive, index. The thumb is Z positive. And then you got this finger here, which is your Y positive. So what we do is we stand, or we look at the robot from where the cables go in. All these Fanuc robots have cables that hook up to the base. That is considered the back of the robot. So from the cables being behind you, point out your right hand rule. And X positive is straight with those cables. Z positive is up, and that means Y positive is to the left, looking from behind. Okay? So we have X going this way. Z going this way. And that means Y going for the left. There's our X, Y, and Z. All right. So now when you're teaching a point, you move the robot, and you're teaching a point, telling the robot you want to recall that point in space. The point you're actually teaching or monitoring or controlling is the TCP. That stands for Tool Center Point. Tool Center Point is where we do the work at. That's the tool. By default, every robot comes with a tool center point, the center of the faceplate. So if I was looking at this faceplate straight on, it would look like this, it'd just be round. Now in the center of that, on the faceplate, this would be our TCP. So we have the origin point, the world. And we have our TCP. Those are two fixed points on the robot. Even though the TCP can move in space, it's fixed on the faceplate in the center here. We can't offset it. We'll talk about that later on. But for now, let's say this robot's out of the box, okay? We start moving it around, and we teach it. The point that it records, let's say it's P1, will have an X, Y, and a Z value, and it'll also have a WP and an R value, okay? The X, Y, Z value is off of this origin point here. So if my X is 1,000, my Y is 500, and my Z is 50, all positive values, they could be negative. So what I'm saying is this point has been recorded 1,000 millimeters. See it? 1,000 millimeters in the X positive direction. That's our X. 500 millimeters from here. Now we're up 500. It's in our Z plus direction. And if the robot is turned to either side from being straight out, so we start out straight out, okay, is 0 for Y. As we turn, we're either going to positive or we're going to a negative Y direction. So in this case, we're going to make Y, you see is 50 here. We're going to make Y 0, just because that's how the robot's positioned. When you're in world, you're focused on the TCP, you're moving that in space in a linear fashion. You're moving it in a straight line. I'll show you guys that on RoboGuide here shortly. Any questions on this so far? Okay. See these keys here, these blue keys? So these keys, they're actually labeled two different ways. They're labeled J1, J2, J2, what do you think that J stands for? Joint. Very good. So if we're moving a joint, there's our keys for joint. Then you got X, Y, Z. Then you got X, Y, Z with an arrow over top. We haven't talked about that yet. You guys understand the X, Y, Z positive? So right now, to tell what mode we're in, we look up here in the status screen. Yeah, right there where it says joint. If I move the robot, I'm moving in that mode. So to move the robot, I got to hit the shift key. And then I'm going to pick joint 3. So let's see where the robot's going to move at. Where do you think joint 3 is going to move it? Right here? Okay. Correct. There's positive. There's negative. Try joint 2. We're moving. Also notice, what's this called? TCP, yes. Full center point. Notice how this moves in space when I'm moving in a joint. Tell me if it's moving in a straight line or more like an arc. I'm going to move axis 1 here. See how it's moving? Try to get in here, see a little better. Is it moving in an arc or is it moving straight? So in joint, think about this. If I move just my elbow, well, let's see, if I move just this here, see how I'm making like an arc? Like doing this? It's an arcing motion. So when you move the robot in joint, it's always an arcing motion. So if I'm holding the pen like this and I move my waist, think about the line that I'm drawing in space. It's another arc. So any axis that I move in joint is an arcing motion. But in world, let's change it to world mode and see what happens here. So notice up here where it says joint. Okay, I'm going to change my jog mode. Down here, this coordinate key, that's how you change your coordinate system that you want to jog in. There's jog frame. Talk about that there. We didn't talk about it, but I wrote it up there. World. That's where we're going to move in world. I'll jog through these so you can see them. Tool. User. Back to joint. So we're going to go to world. Remember, joint was an arcing motion. Now we're going to move world. We're going to move into X positive direction. Which way do you think that's going to be in world? You're going to move X positive. Here's the cables coming in. Yes. Forward. Let's go X positive. Oh, look at that. Look at that baby move smooth. Is it moving in an arc? What do you think? I'm going to go Z positive straight up. When I say straight up, it's straight up. So in world, it's moving in a linear direction. It's not moving in an arc direction. See, trace the path out here. It's moving linear. The robot is focusing on the TCP and moving it in the direction that you want to move in. I want to go Z positive, so let's say, okay, take that TCP. So it's calculating. But this might have to run this motor, this motor, this motor to get it to go up. And it has to figure that out, and that's kind of what robots are amazing. It's the math that they do to figure things out, to get the result we want. So that's why jogging a joint is more efficient, because you're just telling, hey, turn this motor on, it moves, it doesn't care about the TCP, it's just moving the joint. Okay? In a world coordinate system, just like these other ones here, it's actually going to do some calculations, track that TCP, and you can move the TCP. If I put a big tool on here, a big gripper or a big material handler with some suction cups, I can move that TCP and offset it out to the end of the tool where the suction cups are. So when I do all my work out here, it's focused out here instead of back here, basically. Okay, that's something else we'll talk about. Any questions here? Okay, excellent. Okay, got red man switch in. Shift. Now we're in world. Also, I get that in video. Reset.
What's that?
Reset right here. Okay, there you go. So you're operating. You're ready to go and press shift.
Without ship on.
So you're good on the coordinate, you're already in world, so now we're gonna just pick our direction. What direction are you picking?
You join the one that's positive, right hand full,
Okay, and what speed are you? Speed on the top right,
10%.
10%, okay, that's always be aware of your speed. That's your closest surface.
Doesn't matter which one you use.
No, actually, it's actually, yeah, which direction you want to get, go ahead. Hold that shift key in.
Hold down the whole time.
Yeah, hold the whole time. Hold in the direction. Okay, let go of the shift key. And now just speed up like 50 so you can see it go better.
I can choose to
Good question.
double shift to do that. 10, 55, 50, 100.
If it goes by fives, as you hold the shift key, it goes by 50. 50 and 5. Go back. Because keep it in the straight line. He's jogging at the world, the X direction. Okay, go ahead backward, don't want to go too far. You hit a limit switch. So what I want you to do is jog it in the world in a direction. We're going to have these guys guess what direction you're moving in. Okay, guys, use your right hand rule. What direction is that moving? See what? Negative. Very good. How about now? This is a hard one.
Why?
Very good. What is it? Negative. Why negative? Yep. All right, now let's switch it to joint mode. I'm going to let go of that shift key again. Hit the coordinate key. Now you're going speed here. J-Mark Samson. Okay, which joint is he moving? The wrist. 5, yep. About now. Yes. Joint 3. Very good. Go.
So it falls as soon as you let go of the dead man switch.
Yep.
Okay.